first off, first time poster, and this is a true story. I'm not big on sharing experiences, but this one was way too scary for me. So a couple of nights ago, I had trouble sleeping. I decided to go to YouTube and put on one of those relaxing videos that play random water and animal sounds to help you sleep. That didn't work at all. All I could think of was this scary ass story one of my friends told me about his crawl space and a spirit, but that's another story for the time. Eventually I turned off the music and literally forced myself to sleep. A couple of hours later, I'd say 3 or 4 in the morning, I found myself awake. My room was different. It was pitch black, lacking all details and everything. I had this strange feeling, and I felt unwelcomed in my room. I decided to move and turn off the lights. The only problem was, I couldn't fucking move. Okay, yeah, this seems like a sleep paralysis story, but it gets stranger. After about 10 minutes of trying to move, I gave up. It felt like gravity was 10,000 times stronger, and nothing was working. I began to hear voices. Not like voices of people talking, but more like random mumbles and whispers. That's when shit really turned sideways. I'll tell you this, I'm a Christian. Not an over-the-top Christian. I don't go to church, I don't pray every night, but I do believe in God and Jesus. For the first time in my life, I actually prayed. I called for help and meant it. As soon as I did that, I could move a little. As little by little, I moved my body and plopped myself over my bed. I reached up and began to slap my hand on my light switch. Once again, gravity was working against me. I couldn't move anything but my arm and hand. The light switch wouldn't turn on, so I decided to open the door and call one of my roommates for help. So I opened the door, and there it was. Sitting in what was supposed to be my hallway was a figure. In the corner of the hallway, once again lacking all detail, crunched up like a witch from Evil Dead. It was looking at me. I thought to myself, fuck that, and slammed the door and found myself praying once again. I crawled back to my original spot and prayed again until I snapped out of it. I woke up in a puddle of sweat, back in my room. The air was normal. The details in my room were back. I felt welcome in my own place. I was still scared as fuck and confused on what happened. I've never felt that scared in my life, and I'm not one to have nightmares. I was not dreaming. I don't know if I was out of my body with astral projection or whatever it was. I just know for a fact that whatever was in that hallway had nothing but negative vibes, and it was bad.
Okay, so I guess I'll start with some backstory, then we'll dive right into my experience with the paranormal, or whatever that was. I'm a 22-year-old girl, and I live in London. I grew up in an old house, but when I say old, I don't mean like it should have had some historical recognition. I just mean on the street I grew up on, it was the oldest house there, and kinda stood out, as it was different from all the others, and smack bam in the middle of the road. I have 2 brothers, although they have no relevance in this story, and we were raised by our mother. This happened when I was around 8 or 10, and has stuck with me ever since. Right, I think that's all the backstory you'll need, maybe even more than enough. So, I always felt a bit on edge in that house, You know the feeling running up the stairs because you feel like someone's following you, and checking all the corners of a room if you look back down for too long. Hey, probably doesn't help that I'm a horror movie addict and the biggest scaredy cat. Anyway, back to the event in question. It was a Saturday afternoon. I can't remember this because I didn't have school, so I was lying around in my PJs and in the front room watching some cartoons while my mom got ready for work. As I laid there, I began to get that feeling again, but brushed it off as my mom was only upstairs and easily within shouting distance. So imagine my joy when I heard her coming down the stairs. Well, half joy, half anticipation, as I thought she was going to tell me to get up and get ready to go out with her. She came down the stairs. I heard her walk into the kitchen and switch the kettle on. I know what you're thinking. Why is she posting this on No Sleep? Her mom's tea can't be that bad. Just wait. Me being the annoying kid I was, I decided I would pretend to sleep. Not that that ever worked though, but as I waited to hear the familiar call of my name, nothing came. So I went back to watching the telly. Out the corner of my eye, a couple of moments later, I saw her standing in the doorway, staring at me, and my heart began to race, unexplainably, although I could not bring myself to turn around. It just didn't feel right. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 seconds, and me on the verge of a panic attack, I get those a lot, the air seemed to lift, and I saw her leave the room. When I finally turned around, I screamed at the top of my lungs. No answer. So I did it again. Still nothing. How can she be ignoring me? I know she can hear me. She's only in the kitchen, and I know that's because our stairs were very creaky, so there was no chance of sneaking around anywhere. When the uneasy feeling started to grow in my stomach, again I pulled on my big girl pants and marched into the empty kitchen. Yeah, that's right. Empty. Fear took over. Then I ran up the stairs and straight into my half-asleep brother going for his morning wee.
Where's Mom?
I practically shouted at him in my half-confused, half-panicked state.
She's in the shower. She's been in there ages. She should be out soon,
was his response. But that didn't make any sense. I heard her. I saw her. I must be going crazy. No surprise there then. I turned around and walked back down the stairs, planning to get back in my spot on the sofa and finish up my show, but on the way something caught my eye in the kitchen. The kettle. It was smoking. I went over to check it out, and just as I thought, it was burning hot to the touch. I can't lie, I ran back upstairs, jumped in my mom's bed, and stayed there for the rest of the day. I know the story didn't seem that scary, but to an 8 or 9-year-old girl, it was petrifying, and to be honest,
I know. I never should have upgraded from Windows 7 to Windows 10. But hey, hindsight is 2020, okay? The default login screen for Windows 10 features a variety of nature-themed photos, and under the original settings, they will change from time to time automatically. The scenes of nature depicted are kind of picturesque, and I've always found them to be pretty relaxing, so I'm always happy to leave it as it is. Until this morning, that is. My computer isn't exactly the fastest, so I usually start it up first thing in the morning, even before I have breakfast. One morning last week, the photo on the screen that greeted my eyes as I entered my study almost made me drop my coffee mug. It was from my recent trip to Japan. Now granted that I'd already uploaded it to my computer, so it wasn't like some supernatural shit was going on. It unsettled me. I'm no computer expert, but it just didn't seem likely that Windows was just going to pluck some random photo from my library to use it on my login screen. They've been using their own stock photos for as long as I remember. It didn't help that the photo in question was a haunting one. It framed a lonely lane in the middle of a bamboo forest I had visited in the outskirts of Tokyo. I remember that photo particularly well because it wasn't the typical tourist spot, and having arrived close to dusk, I had found the place deserted, perhaps even slightly uncomfortable. It was a beautiful picture, and one I was proud to have taken. So after I had shaken off the initial shock, I decided to let it remain. I thought it had to be a Windows 10 feature or something. How perhaps with one of those madly complex algorithms of theirs, they could detect suitable photographs stored in the hard drive and use it as they thought appropriate. I had half a mind to Google how to change the settings. No one likes it when artificial intelligence gets a bit, too intelligent. But I shelved the idea as I had more pressing matters to attend to. Days passed, and every time I started up my computer, I was filled with a sense of pride, but also a slowly deepening sense of dread. Now, what was the story behind that lane again? I remembered reading up on that particular bamboo grove during my trip, so I dug up my old itinerary to have a read. I changed my login screen photo immediately after that. The bamboo forest was a famous, or rather infamous place, because after Japan's surrender effectively ended World War II, many Japanese soldiers, unable to take what they saw as the unredeemable humiliation of surrendering to the foreign enemy, they took their lives in that very place. Many of them committed suicide, the only honorable way for defeated samurai to die, other than in battle. It is also a horrible way to die, since it means having to disembowel yourself. I had a nightmare that very night. I was a Japanese soldier. I was in that familiar grove. I didn't want to die, much less die in a painful manner, but I knew that I didn't have a choice. My heavy hands hefted the weight of the short, sharp knife that I soon had to plunge into my belly. I began to think that any kind of life was better than none at all. "Hurry," hissed my second, the one who would end my life quickly as soon as I had suffered enough. Or the moment he saw I was going to cry out in agony, and so dishonor myself. He gripped my shoulder, pushing me down onto my knees, as a frightened whimper escaped me. "I don't want to die. I don't want to die." But as I peered through tear-muddled eyes up at the grim executioner, whose gleaming sword was already raised above my head, ready to cleave my life away in one fell swing, I knew my life was already forfeit. I took the knife from both hands and plunged it deep into my stomach, shrieking all the way. I woke up covered in cold sweat. All the dampness on my body made me think for a moment that I had wetted the bed, and frankly, had that turned out to be true, I wouldn't have been surprised at all. But worst of all, my computer, which I dutifully turned off every night before going to bed, was already switched on. The photo I had come to hate had made its reappearance on the garnished screen, but there was something different about it. I grabbed my glasses. I gasped, for at the far end of the lane there was a small but unmistakable figure. A soldier wiping his blood-stained sword.